This is Books in Action. I'm Suzanne Roganci, and sitting with me today is Linda West Eckhardt, author of all of these books, a total of 18 cookbooks?
18 books.
18 cookbooks, and she does a podcast, Don't Talk With Your Mouth Full, correct?
That's right.
I love Linda. Linda is now a Maplewood resident, but she's a transplant from Texas, so good things do grow in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And her latest book, The Dog Ate It, recipes that people can share with their dogs. Now you're making the whole crew's mouth water, Linda.
I know, I had to fight them off to get it up here.
So why don't you start with whichever one you want to start with.
Sure. Well, I just brought some things from various projects. The book that I wrote last year, Cakes from Scratch in Half the Time. I brought Edith's Mother's Pound Cake, which I've now made 2,000 times. It goes in the oven in 5 minutes. The deal with this book is all the cakes are from scratch, but you're in and out of the kitchen in an hour or less. So I brought that for us to taste. I brought, this is from the new book that's The Dog Ate It. These are called pup cakes.
Okay.
And these are little pumpkin muffins. I actually developed this recipe for a project last year for the New York City public school system to give children a healthy breakfast. And then when I started working on the dog food book, I thought, hey, whoa. And my dogs always taste whatever I'm cooking, so now we call them pup cakes.
So is there sugar in them?
No.
And so they're perfectly fine for dogs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Neither you nor your dog should be eating sugar, as you know.
Okay.
She said. And then last I brought Dead Bats Pull-Aparts. Now this is a recipe, isn't that scary looking?
It looks delicious.
This is a recipe from my new project, which I just turned in, called Indigestion. And these are a 3-minute miracle recipe done by Michelle Mann, who is America's virtual queen of television food, and these are a great thing. You can eat one anytime.
I'm going to eat one because it smells so good.
It does.
But tell me, in regards to cakes from scratch, what's the difference between a cake from scratch and a cake Duncan Hines?
Oh my God. Chemicals. In a word, chemicals. If you bake from scratch, you can pick up that chemical smell in cake batter and in a made cake. And I mean, it just overwhelms everything as far as I'm concerned. And I wrote this book because my daughter, Catherine DeFoyd, who lives here in Maplewood, she sent me to Jackie's Bakery in Maplewood to get birthday cakes for Lily and Noe when they were about 5 years old. And I went down there, and she said, just let them pick out whatever they want, and I'll tell her I'll pay for them later. So I went down and picked out the cakes, and Jackie handed me the invoice, and it was $80. I said, $80 for children's birthday cakes? Are you crazy? She said, I don't have time to make cakes, and I hate cake mixes. I said, Catherine, I'm writing a book for you. I'm going to make you a book full of simple recipes for cake that can all be done in less than an hour, and there it is.
Okay. These are delicious.
They're good, aren't they?
What's sweet in them?
Well, it's a mixture of mayonnaise, the secret ingredient from the South. I mean, that's our gourmet cheating ingredient to everything. 4-seeded mustard and a little honey.
Delicious.
Smeared they're on crescent rolls that are cut into diaper shape. You know, crescent rolls are already triangles, so you cut them in half.
Right.
And then you fold them up like diapers and in with cocktail wieners.
It's
3 minutes. There
it's
you go.
so good, and usually I can spot a crescent roll, a refrigerated crescent roll like that, and you can't even tell that that's what this is.
Well, Michelle Mann is such an esteemed cook, you know. And then these are just wonderful, these little pup cakes.
I'm going to try them.
I went to an event in June in New York, Barkin Arts, which is a thing that has mainly dogs and some cats, as a subject of art. And in one case, they had the dog was the painter. And so I brought pup cakes for treats for everybody. 400 people and dogs in a Soho gallery. It was quite amusing, let me tell you.
And was it hard to walk around later?
It was hard to walk around even then because people they were so crowded.
Now, you're an author of 18 cookbooks over how many years?
Well, the only Texas cookbook which I wrote here, which the editor on this book is really interesting because the editor of this book is Daniel Okrent, who is a New Yorker he was last year, he was the public editor of the New York Times. But in 1982, when I wrote this book, he came down from New York to Austin, where I lived then, and said, you need a book branch and you need a cookbook because cookbooks are forever. So I was writing their food column, so they asked me to write this book. And I guess Danny was right because it's still in print.
And so you started writing cookbooks in '82,
Yeah, in '82.
and this has been your main source of income.
Yeah, well, yeah, writing about food. It's not just cookbooks. I mean, I write magazine pieces.
Uh-huh.
I represent companies, do consulting with companies about food topics. I'm just your basic food slut. Whatever it is about food, I do it.
You're my kind of person. So how does it, because it seems that food has become like fashion.
Oh, absolutely.
Just
true.
trend, nouveau cuisine is out. What's the haute cuisine now?
Oh, the new thing coming on. Now watch, remember you heard it here first. The new thing that's coming is a new ultra cuisine that has, the recipes I've seen have as many as 70 ingredients. Now, trust me, no human being can ever make these recipes at home because it requires a chef and 15 people working behind him. But this is a chef in Toronto who's doing this, and he is the hot new ticket.
And what do they call the cuisine?
I don't know. I think they just call it by his name.
Because it seems to me now they're talking about flavor palettes. You know, the flavor palette of combining different things.
Well, and they talk about layering flavors and all this stuff, you know. But we're always thinking of something. But you know what I say? Look, everybody eats every day. It's never going to be out of style. I mean, food is always going to be interesting to people. And in our country, of course, we have this insane dichotomy between the rich and the poor. So we have rich people getting richer and ordering more and more arcane foods, and then we have the poor who go to bed hungry at night. So,
well, I tell you, I
class.
bought a brisket the other day.
Yeah,
for $18. $18 for a brisket, which used to be poor people's meat.
Absolutely.
Chuck roast, poor people's meat. Flank steak, when we were little,
they practically gave it away.
And now it's like really, it seems like, you know, rich people discovered our poor people's food.
This is a fact.
Give us back our food, people.
I know, this is a fact.
It's crazy.
Really true. It's really true. And the whole thing in our country about prepared foods, you know, the grocery stores, I've been writing about food long enough to have seen the metamorphosis of grocery stores. And they've really changed so that now in most urban grocery stores and suburban grocery stores, at least 1/3 of the square footage of the store is given over to prepared foods.
Well, I'm a person who I like to use the brands that I saw in my childhood. And it used to be you could go on the cookie aisle, for example, at Pathmark, and the whole aisle from one end to the other was cookies. I notice now it's not even 1/3. And so there's far fewer brands. And they're missing some of mine, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. Today, what do you suggest? I know I get so sick of, we all end up being in little food ruts. How do you get, well, because that's your world. So for us lay people.
Yeah, right.
How do we get out of our food ruts? Because it always feels like it's so much work.
Well, you just have to buy more cookbooks, of course. You know, there's the sales pitch. But my daughter Catherine and I, we wrote 4 books together. This one, Half Scratch Magic, is a very good solution to that because these recipes can be on the supper table for families in 30 minutes or less. But this book, by the way, is an interesting, if you want a little publishing dirt about what the business is really like.
Dirt's good.
Yeah, dirt is good. Catherine and I wrote this book, and it had a title that was different from this, and it had the whole metaphor was different. We called it, isn't that funny? I can't remember what we called it, but it had to do with, we called it emergency dinners. And the whole metaphor in the book, like we had a chapter called Red Alert, and we had all these metaphors, about what to do in an emergency.
Right.
And we turned the book in on September the 10th.
Oh, okay.
And after September 11th, it was no longer funny. None of those metaphors worked. We had to pull the book back. We had to rehash all the text in the book. We didn't change the recipes, of course, but it pretty much queered the book because it came out in an odd time of year. And so, I mean, publishing books, whether it's cookbooks or any other kind of books, there's a whole lot going on besides what's between the covers. Luck, timing, all kind of strange things play into whether or not a book flies or not.
Well, now having done it for 18 years, what significant changes do you see happening?
Wow. In publishing?
And I'm sure that always every industry changes, but do you see, say, in the last 5 years, a quantum changed?
There's a sea change in publishing that's taken place in the last 5 years, and this is not just cookbooks, it's publishing as a whole. And it all is not to the advantage of the beginner, and it's not to the advantage of the mid-list writer, because what's happened is publishing has consolidated now. I mean, there used to be 30 publishers you could go to in New York. If you had a book proposal or if you had written a novel, there were maybe 30 places your agent could send it. But today they've consolidated till there are really no more than 4 or 5 publishers. And if you go to one subhead of a publisher and you say to your agent, well, how about we send it over here? And it's the same house, and they're not going to compete with each other. So it makes it much harder for beginners to break in, and it makes it much harder for mid-list writers to stay afloat, because everything is geared to the mega hit and the big blockbuster book. And,
so with that dynamic, which doesn't sound good for the public, how does the internet change? Does that give you another outlet?
Actually, we're on the cusp of a revolution in communications, and none of us can even, I mean, anybody who tells you they know where it's going is just blowing smoke, because it's so new, we really don't know where it's going. But absolutely, it's changing everything. I last year, or 2 years ago, won the James Beard Prize for a radio show I do, and that same year, a woman named Jennifer Rosen, R-O-T-Z-E-N, out in Denver, won a James Beard Prize for her website about wine. So completely out of the publishing mainstream. And she won, and richly deserved it. Her website is fantastic. So we're seeing a lot of movement away from the stranglehold that New York has had on publishing. But at the same time I say that, as you atomize the business, people have less and less influence, you know. I mean, all this chatter that goes on in the business makes it harder and harder to get attention from the public.
And it doesn't seem that the chatter benefits the cooking world or the public. It's almost like it's just nattering.
Well, it actually is completely separate. The business of the food world has less and less to do with cookbooks, because people don't really cook from recipes much anymore. They're up buying all those prepared foods, and people, I call them hobby cooks. You know, the people that I write for are the minority. Maybe they estimate now maybe 10-15% of the population actually cooks from scratch anymore. And so that's who I write for, but they're a distinct minority.
Well, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, 2 things I wanted to discuss. One is I think people need to get back to preparing their food and getting involved in it, and we'll have a brief discussion on that. And I also want to talk about how celebrity cooking, television, and how it's affecting cookbooks as well.
I'm so glad. Love to talk about that.
Okay, we'll be back with Linda Eckhardt and myself in just a minute. Feel good?
Yeah, sure.
Anything that we didn't cover?
Can I help you, sir?
I found these over by the stairs.
Okay, thank you.
What are they?
Love handles. Lots of people lose them taking the stairs instead of the escalator.
Hi, we're back. This is Books in Action. Suzanne Roganski. I'm here with Linda West Eckhardt. If you look closely, you're going to notice there's been some changes to the set. The crew has eaten the muffins and the pull-apart bat wings, and they were delicious. They're a little sluggish now, but we're going to deal with it. So, people, it seems to me that with all the fast food, prepared food, boxed food, that as we've gotten away from the roots of food, and it's changed how we eat. Because it's been my experience that if you take time to prepare something, you don't wolf it down.
That's a fact.
So how you interact with it is completely different. But when you just grab it or got it served to you, there is a tendency you're in a hurry and you just like inhale the food.
Like car food, you know,
Oh,
people
yeah.
who buy food in the car and before they get home they've already eaten it, you know.
Yeah.
Hate that.
Well, how can people have scratch magic? Certainly. What would be if you had to put like 5 things or 3 reasons why people should get reconnected to the process of preparing their own food?
Well, in the first place, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
If you come home from work and you have, let's say you're a Wall Street banker and you have to crank out numbers all day and you want to kill the people you work with most of the time, if you come home and get out a small knife and start cutting up potatoes and putting them in a pot and sauteing them in a little olive oil and butter, by the time you get the onions and the garlic and the potatoes and the carrots and everything cooked, you're going to feel better because it's very therapeutic, just handling food.
Mm-hmm.
I always say it's not the product I'm after, it's the process, you know, because it's very, very rewarding just to, and you know, if it isn't that good, just give it to the dog. Dogs will eat most anything.
Now let's talk dirt, shall we?
Yeah.
We are inundated with Top Chef and Hell's Kitchens and is it Rachel Ray and Martha Stewart and whoever is the chef du jour, the Iron Chef. How is that? Is that really like great food? Is it something we can all take and use, or is it a lot of fluff?
Well, there's not even an easy answer to that. Some of the shows are valuable. Some of them are just for entertainment. Some of them are just amusing. Some of them are food as pornography. You know, some of them don't have anything to do much at all with cooking. You just want to roll in it because it looks so beautiful and sexy. But it's absolutely changed our view of food, and it's had the same sort of effect on food that glamorous 27-year-old and 17-year-old models have had on our notions of beauty. Because now we see food as it being necessary for it to be really beautiful. And as you know, you're a traditional cook. I'm a traditional cook. Many things that you cook from scratch that take a long time and maybe use tough meat as part of the ingredient, they don't look so good when you, I mean, like chili, like the Texas book has chili recipes. I mean, you know, chili was murder to photograph because it's not pretty. But in today's world, we eat with our eyes all the time and we expect things to be really beautiful.
Well, yeah, and that is like, you know, when you're watching TV and you see things, you get really hungry. But nothing does it for me like the smell of something.
I agree.
And then as you're cooking and as all of those things are
yeah.
coming together and
yeah.
coming out, it just, you know, takes you to a whole nother place.
Yeah.
That the visual becomes
I know.
completely unimportant.
I agree
And then plating it is, you know, fun. You can make things
Yeah.
pretty plating it.
Yeah. Some things really can't be plated to look pretty, but they still taste great. So, but what are we going to do? I mean, the reality is that most people today work, living here where we live, most people work in Manhattan who live here, and their job they may be in their job 9 or 10 hours a day, and they got an hour and a half commute each way. Well, what do you think they're going to do when they get home? They cannot do much. You know, they're exhausted.
I have to tell you, I just think that I know when I'm connected in cooking something and from scratch, that the process, I do feel better through the process. I also feel connected to something right. I guess maybe like the natural order of things, or, you know, natural rhythm of things.
Yeah.
And I know I used to see a chiropractor who was also a Chinese medicine doctor. And he always said, never ever eat things out of season.
Oh,
that
he's right.
we live in the age where you can get anything, any season. And he said your body goes with the rhythms of nature.
Right.
And so you should always eat things that are in season where you live.
Sure. Now that I live in New Jersey, I never eat a tomato except when I grow. Because tomatoes in the grocery store, I don't care what organic farm they came off of, they do not taste like a Jersey tomato out of your backyard. So I eat seasonally all the time. And we're lucky here because we have great farmers markets all the way through November. And if people would just do that, that would really help. And actually, that's why I wrote this new book, The Dog Ate It, because I like to cook, and my children are grown and gone, my husband's gone. But I do like to cook from scratch, and so I thought, why not cook for the dogs? So I cook for them every day now.
So what's your favorite recipe?
In the dog book, well, I have a couple of favorites. One is a flank steak. You mentioned that. And of course, it is a luxury meal for dogs now as well as for people. But it's a flank steak recipe with portobello mushrooms and a little finish with a little red wine. Sauteed really fast like you do a flank steak. The dogs love it. Serve it over brown rice. It's really good. And then for the dogs' everyday food, I mean, I don't eat every meal with the dogs, but the dogs eat human-grade food every meal. So every day I run the crock pot. Like today when I came here, I left chicken and noodle soup going in the crock pot. When I get home, that's what the dogs will have for dinner. So they have human food every single day, and they're extremely healthy. I just got to notice one of them has to go for shots, and that dog hadn't been in the vet's office all year. Well, guess why? Because they're eating better quality food.
Well, and they're getting no chemicals in there as well.
No chemicals. I know chemicals are just really terrible for all of us.
So let me ask you this. How much time is added to your day cooking your regular dog food? Like, obviously you don't get dog food, is that correct?
Never.
So how much, like, is it like cooking for a person?
Well, for their normal run-of-the-mill food, it takes me 10 minutes because I go to the market and I buy, about every 2 or 3 weeks I buy chicken thighs, I buy veal hearts, I buy kidney, liver, a pork roast. I bought a pork shoulder yesterday. On various days, each one of those things will be cooked for the dog. And I give them about 1/3 protein, 1/3 high-quality grain, whole grains, and vegetables. And the vegetables can be just what I ate yesterday, what's left over, or it can be frozen mixed vegetables. And that's what they get every day. So, and it's easy. In a crock pot, I mean, it takes 5 minutes of my time. You know,
so
it's nothing.
for those of you who are dog lovers, it doesn't have to take time. And you know, that's a whole nother conversation, is people and their dogs nowadays.
Oh my God!
I mean,
they have
the pet has been elevated to a whole new status.
Uber child.
So I'm sure that your book is going to do well, and people can get it on the internet?
They can get it in bookstores everywhere, and they can get it online. They can get it from Amazon. And the publisher, God bless them, they priced it right. It's $15 in stores. It's $10 and change online. So it's a good stocking stuffer.
So that's great for anyone who has that dog lover that you don't know what to get for. So now, Linda, let me ask you, of all of your cooking experience, what is your favorite dessert?
I think actually my favorite dessert is panna cotta, which is the simplest thing in the world. It's an Italian dessert made with gelatin and cream, and then whatever you want to flavor it with. That's it. I mean, it's the simplest thing in the world. Fresh fruit. It's really simple to make and easy.
Favorite
and fun.
entree?
I don't have a favorite. I mean, whatever my favorite is what I'm doing this week. I mean, I'm getting ready to do Thanksgiving, and Eric repairs turkey. So that's what I want for Thanksgiving. But I don't really have a favorite because I'm just like a shark going through the water. I'm always looking for something new. Always want something
So
new.
what is your guilty pleasure when it comes to food?
I don't have guilt when it comes to food.
What's your pleasure, Linda?
I just eat anything I want to eat that strikes my fancy.
I have to tell you, I went through a summer where I was making strawberry shortcake every couple days. You know, I would make it with biscuits because I like not sweet biscuits with just a tiny bit of sugar in them.
Great, isn't it?
Then whipped cream and then fresh strawberries.
Yeah.
And I was making it probably 5 nights out of 7. Needless to say, it was a big summer, and I'm not talking about the weather.
Right.
And the kids loved it. But like
Sure,
you know, I
sure.
for whatever reason I couldn't get enough of strawberry shortcake.
But see, I don't ever have that luxury because I'm always working on a project. And whatever project I'm working on, that's the food that I cook. And when my kids were little and we lived in Oregon, the big joke was if the dogs wouldn't eat whatever the recipe test was that day, we knew it was hopeless. I wrote 2 bread books, and the funniest thing in the world is to see dogs take a loaf of bread and bury it in the backyard. They go, get that out of the house! I've got to get that in the ground. And I've always said in 1,000 years when the people come and dig up my backyard, they're going to say, this was a weird religious cult going on here because there's bread buried in the backyard.
And it's still fresh.
Yeah.
So I see that you've done chili, you've done dog food, half scratch magic, dessert, cakes. Feed your family for $10 a day. Can you still feed your family for $10 a day?
No, the numbers don't work anymore, but the principle works. Now, you see, that's the kind of cooking like you like to do and like I like to do. That's a great book for people who have kids going away to college who, like, you know, my children lived on top ramen when they went away to college. But I wrote this book about the time my kids were going to college to give them something to cook that would be wholesome and good and not take much of their time.
Now, do you have an opportunity for yourself to check out other cultures' foods?
Oh, absolutely.
And do you have any that you're particularly fond of?
Well, this is so boring to say. This is so boring, and it's a cliche, and I apologize in advance, but I do love Italian food. I go to Tuscany every year, and I love Italian cooking, and I love the whole Italian connection with food. And you talk about being connected to the earth. Boy, are they connected. And the way they take 3 hours for lunch. I just think it's such a healthy way to live. You know?
Well, I think the French do the same thing.
They do indeed.
And my husband's Iranian, and I do cook a lot of Iranian dishes. And like fast food is when it takes only an hour. That's like really fast.
Sure,
food.
sure.
But it is wonderful sometimes,
Yeah,
like to do something, to know that it's going to be exquisite, to go through all of the very many processes that you have to do, all the different ingredients. And I think there's a pleasure in food that we don't necessarily like really take a part of in this country.
Right. Well, it's there for anybody to do it if they want to. It's a choice people make. You don't have to eat fast food, and you don't have to spend a lot of time cooking if you're using food from scratch. There are many, many fabulous things you can do quickly. It's just a mindset. And if people would just get away from corn chips and soda pop. Oh, don't get me started on soda pop.
Don't mess with me now, because I like okay. I do like soda pop, I'm not going to lie. And only we in the West, because I grew up in California, call it soda pop.
Oh, right. What do they call it here? I don't even know.
Soda.
Soda?
No,
Just soda.
Just soda.
Oh, we call it soda pop.
That was
Us Western girls.
voice.
I know, the Western girls here, we call it soda pop.
Well, it has been really, really wonderful. I think do yourself a favor and just get back to, even if you do it one night a week, start cooking from scratch. And certainly any of Linda's cookbooks can be available online. And I hope you all have some fun. It's been terrific.
Thanks, I've enjoyed it.
Next time we'll have to cook something.
I know, we should cook together. We'd have a lot of fun doing that.
With or without clothes.
Well,
Well, it'd be
that's another
tripping.
show.
Too much tripping without clothes, so
That's
we'll do it
another-
clothed.
Sometime I'll tell you about
And
Jared Cameron's
dream your
wedding
troubles
cake.
away until that sunshine peeps through. There's only one thing to do. Just wrap your troubles in dreams and dream your troubles away. Your castles may tumble, that's fate after all. Life's funny that way. No use to grumble, smile as they fall. Want you king for a day? Just remember that sunshine always follow the rain. So wrap your troubles in dreams and dream your troubles away.